Welcome to Mindful School Marketing, your go-to podcast for personal and professional growth.
We're school marketers, business owners, and moms passionate about connecting other school professionals with tools and strategies for success.
We love solving problems, exploring new ideas, and thinking outside the box. Let's transform your school and life starting right now. Transform your school's admissions and marketing with Inquiry Tracker, the ultimate solution for managing inquiries seamlessly. Discover how you can make your admissions process more efficient and effective with this leading solution.
Thank you all for coming. This is an inaugural live podcast panel. We've been to VAS a few times, and you may have chatted with us in the lobby where we asked you about your experience. We thought we'd switch it up this time and do a whole panel and talk about things that are going on in the independent school environment as it relates to marketing. So we're going to start with some introductions. I'm Tara Clays. My company is Design TLC. We make websites for independent schools and education-focused nonprofits. We use WordPress. And also, Aubrey and I are co-hosts of the Mindful School Marketing Podcast.
Yes, Mindful School Marketing Podcast. I'm Aubrey Bursch. I'm co-host of the Mindful School Marketing Podcast. I'm also CEO of Easy School Marketing. We work with small, independent, and private schools to work on development and marketing initiatives. And we're really excited to be back here at VAIS, to really host this live. I mean, this is our first live panel. So Tara and I are really excited, and we're fortunate to have some amazing guests.
Hi, I'm Drew Lineberger. I'm the Assistant Head of School for Advancement at Seven Hills School, which is an all-boys middle school in Richmond, Virginia. We are only about 96 boys, and so you can imagine we wear a lot of different hats, and all of our offices are basically one-person offices. And we're a relatively young school as well. We're not even 25 years old yet.
I'm Abigail Cook. I'm the communications specialist at Eastern Mennonite School, which is in Harrisonburg, Virginia. And we are the opposite. We're over 100 years old and kind of grew from high school down. So we're exploring all of that, what that means in the beautiful Shenandoah Valley.
I'm Jay Lasley, head of school here at Hampton Roads Academy. We're proud to host the VAIS Advancement Institute, and of course, this podcast. I had a long career in admissions prior to being named the head here 2 years ago, just across the water, 30 miles away or so at Norfolk Academy for many years, and then a few years in Florida at Berkeley Preparatory School in Tampa. So we at HRA, we're a pre-K through 12 co-ed day school of 600 plus students.
Great. Thanks. What a great group. We wanted to make sure we covered a lot of bases with 3 people, and we certainly did.
I think the goal of this panel is to really hear from different perspectives about marketing and a lot of different topics. So in terms of the format for today, we're going to go ahead and ask our panel some questions about marketing and different, sections of marketing, and hear what they have to say, because they're coming from 3 very different school environments and a lot of different experience in the marketing world and their positions. And then following that, we'll go into our rapid fire questions, which if you have attended our podcast or listened to our podcast before, you probably know. And then we'll open the floor to questions from you all. We want to hear what's on your mind as well. Am I missing anything?
I think that's good. Yeah. Want to kick it off with the first question?
Oh, yes, I do. Thank you. So we're going to talk about current and emerging challenges. So what's a marketing challenge you're facing right now or one you anticipate in the coming year? What's something you're planning to focus on in the next year or 2? Big question.
I'll kick it off. Getting kind of granular, I think one area that we depend a lot on digital marketing and really looking at the efficacy of it, the effectiveness of it. And frankly, one of the big challenges right now is with GA4, with the new Google system, we're not really able to get as granular with our data as we have been in the past, or being able to trust what we are seeing. And so for such a small school that depends heavily on digital marketing, understanding where our families are coming from, how they're coming to us, we're not able to see that as much. So whenever we have the digital ads, it's sometimes difficult to truly understand how effective they are being. Now, on the back end with inquiries, things like that, you can extrapolate, but we are trying to get on the front end of that. And I think that's something that we've been doing pretty well until the past year or so. And so there's a little more unknown. And it's still going to remain unknown, I think, in the next year. So I don't know how I'm going to tackle it yet.
So a marketing challenge we have, I often say I'm a communications specialist, heavy on the communications and storytelling piece, because we're a historically Mennonite school. And I don't know if you know anything about Mennonites, but they're quite humble and they do not like to brag about the things that they're good at. So the word marketing, even in and of itself, is kind of an interesting, we have to even couch that in some other terms and some nuance, even to like get there, right? But we have an emphasis on experiential learning, which is a huge part of those are our distinctives, but also on restorative justice, which is an influence in our area, but also our teachers are experts in restorative practices. And I want to tell those stories, and they often are telling me like, okay, but we're not experts. And I'm like, but you are. And they're like, but we're not. And I'm like, yeah, you are though. So those challenges with making sure that we, adequately affirm and tell the good stories and not overdo it so that teachers don't and staff don't feel uncomfortable.
We're dealing with interesting population shifts that are happening that we're on the peninsula of Virginia. The heart would be the larger metropolitan areas of Newport News and Hampton. Population shifts are trending towards Williamsburg, just north of here, Smithfield, which is in western Tidewater, and Gloucester, areas that are just growing pretty rapidly. And so for us to keep up with those populations as they grow, introducing in a lot of cases independent schools to families who are moving there from out of state, that's a constant challenge for us, but it's a good one because this region is growing just in different places than it was, say, a decade or more ago.
I'm going to jump a little bit on the next question. I'm going to jump ahead because I think it relates to what we're talking about, which is your marketing resources. As you mentioned digital ads. So when it comes to your resources, both your marketing budget, but also your time, your tasks, your projects, what do you prioritize and why? And where are you investing those resources, your time, your energy, your funds? And if you want to talk about ads in that conversation, that's certainly a good place to bring it up. So who wants to jump in on that one first? You're sort of prioritizing your marketing resources.
Well, since I brought up the digital, to begin with, and being such a small office, having been at Seven Hills for 10 years, when I first arrived, I was the admission office, I was the marketing communications office as well, and then also helped out with development, okay? We have since expanded a little bit, but one thing that I learned pretty quickly is I cannot be an expert on everything, or that really waters down, I think, the role that I played. So I learned pretty quickly to distribute funds and bringing experts in. And that can either be consulting with a firm to help with digital advertising. It could be bringing in someone on staff that really has a focus on kind of digital marketing. And so when we look at resource allocation, the board was very kind in the fact that we were able to, there's a cute daughter, by the way. But we were able to really invest funds in bringing in a firm that helped us strictly with digital marketing. And that has really made a huge difference in our pipeline, in our inquiries. And so I think we made a conscious decision not to bring someone on staff, but to really hire out for that. And then when it comes to our actual budget, I would say 90% of my budget goes to digital marketing or to this firm. I mean, it's a huge piece. I do very little print. And I could get into that later, but we only are in print in one place, and that is it. So all of it's digital for us.
Yeah, because of that history that I was talking about earlier, we are kind of opposite. So we have a huge alumni base, obviously, having had many graduates at this point. So we have a Today magazine, which is a large publication that we print 3 times a year, and it goes out to various alumni around the world, which is incredible. I would say the push and pull between digital and print, we're still filling that out. I mean, we have some bigger decisions to make in the future, especially with how we allocate our resources. But yeah, the struggle is real, as they say. I think that part of the reason why it's so important to put together a magazine like today is because that's where we're able to tell stories in a way that the reach really gets to the people who know those faces. Whereas with digital, you don't necessarily, unless we actually use social media socially, see who's, clicking and liking and all of those things. Sometimes it's just like a passing, where it's much more of an immersive experience with print media. So I like them both.
I'll talk about it from the development perspective a little bit more this time than admissions. We've turned over and expanded over the last 2 years our development office, our advancement office. And alumni outreach was a huge target for them. That had faded, kind of gone stagnant here, which is as horrendous as it sounds. It's the lifeblood of any independent school. And we just hadn't done a good job consistently in the last 5, 6, 7 years with our alumni outreach and engagement. So our new advancement team and director, that has been a priority for them. And we saw the returns early on in the fall with things like homecoming, alumni weekend, and Hall of Fame and things like that. Just engaging with people, inviting them to campus, often the first time in 20 years they've been on campus here. And then we really felt it positively a couple of weeks ago with our Founders Day and big day of giving. So we set a lot of records that particular day because just a little bit more effort, a little bit more targeted marketing towards alumni, particularly those who are local.
I want to follow up and ask you in terms of time. What do you spend the most of your time on, each of you? I mean, you're not just a marketer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, today we spent a lot of time setting up.
Is that
Great setup, by the way.
from a marketing standpoint? When you're wearing that.
Yeah, a school our size, we're a mid-sized day school, and just my background lends itself to being involved, hopefully not overly involved in micromanaging, but working closely with admissions, working closely with advancement. That's the work I really enjoy, and we've got great people in those offices, and they have a high tolerance for a head of school who wants to come in every day and say hello to them and nose around a little bit. But I would say, and that was part of the reason I was hired here, just that background. So that has been a target for us to make sure we lift both those ends of the spectrum from an advancement standpoint, our fundraising and our admissions. So heavily involved in both.
I would say over the past several years, and this is where I do spend a lot of my headspace, a lot of thinking time. If I am out on a walk, if I am doing things, this is what I'm kind of thinking about. And it is, why are families looking at 7 Hills? It was very interesting. The speaker today, Dr. Bell, I think, hit the nail on the head from a school perspective. What type of school are you? Are you a product school? Are you a product or a process school? Are you a price school? Okay. And I have kind of flipped that 180 in how I look at marketing. I want to find out, why are they looking at us? Not what I want to say to them all the time and tell about our great progress, but figuring out why they are looking at us. And NAIS had this great research about 6, 7 years ago called Jobs to be Done. And this is a foundational tenet in our marketing efforts, is in the part of the research. Sorry, those of you who are not familiar with it, there are basically 4 main jobs that NAIS has identified of why parents look at independent schools. Okay, and they consider it kind of a job that the parents want you to do for their child. And once we started understanding why people were looking at 7 Hills, allowed us to really cater the messaging much more to the parent, not just telling them what we wanted them to hear, what they wanted to hear, what they were looking for. And we're constantly surveying our families yearly and getting a better sense of why they're looking at us. And one of the specific questions on there is one of the 4 jobs, like, why did you choose us? Why did you look at us? And then why did you end up enrolling? Which could be 2 different things. And we use that in our messaging. and making it really personalized. So talking to the parents about what they're searching for, not necessarily what we always want them to know. And I take it's very valid of understanding the type of school you are, but when it comes to marketing, you have to tell people kind of what you have to put yourself out there where they are looking for and what they're looking for, and still being true to yourself. So
in terms of time breakdown, though, I certainly spend more time on digital media because the content output is so much more regular. I do try to make all content that's created work across as many platforms as possible. So I actually start with the story and then I ask who is the audience. So if this were showing up in the magazine, who is the audience for that? And what version of the story do I tell there? If it's going to Instagram and so on. So.
It's so interesting. I'm curious, as we're talking about like time investment, which is one of our most precious resources as school marketers or anyone working in the school. Like when you're thinking about your time, how are you assessing your return on investment or if something is a success?
I think the biggest return on investment for us is, are we full? Are students enrolling? And then on the inverse of, or in the continuation of that, are they re-enrolling? Because retention is just as important. For a school of 96 boys, every single student matters. And all of us, even if you're at a JK to 12, even if you have a school of over 1,000 students, still every student matters, but it really matters at a school under 100. And when, fortunately, we are able to judge our return on investment with the advertising, with the marketing, with the messaging, in the fact that we are full. And the fact that last year we only lost one student, decided not to return. When we have above 94% retention over the past 4 years, that's saying something is working. So there is that beneficial or positive relationship between what they are seeking and then what they are experiencing with us. And I think that's how I judge it.
Yeah, I think data matters and I'm definitely paying attention to that. I'm looking at likes and shares and I'm doing the research on each kind of post, and I have kind of categories and where they fall and how they look, at least on paper. That's one factor, of course, among many. And I think joy is a huge part of what I'm trying to convey, because when I am at my school, the reason why I'm there and the reason why I have my children there is because I believe in it, but also I feel good there. I feel like it's a place that's light-filled, much like this school that we're sitting in. It's beautiful and warm and kind, and the feeling and the vibe is right for the kind of learning that I hope we can all have. And then, right, we have these statements of belonging and these the kind of vision and mission builds upon this space and the context and all of that. And so I want everything that we put out about the school to match that same level of integrity. So I hope with social media posts and things like that, that if people feel good about it, which they tell me if they do or they don't, right? that also is a certain kind of information. And then there are others as well, but.
I think maybe on a more surface level, and sometimes this sounds shallow, but we're talking about differentiators and what families are looking for, and certainly programming and unique programming and curricular differences that families see perhaps in public schools versus us. We also have to make sure we look the part. And again, that may sound shallow at times, but the campus itself has to be a differentiator. We have to invest in our facilities staff. And I'm getting a little off topic here from advancement work, but I think all of this is interconnected here.
Sure.
So, and I think we are predisposed to pay close attention to that in admission work and advancement work and communications work. But for the entire faculty to pick up on that needs to be contagious. We need to make sure we look good when we bring 70 guests to campus for a conference. We need to make sure we look good, not just on open house day, but on a Wednesday in May when we're going to have guests walk in to the admission office. We're going to make sure grounds look good, landscaping looks good, our hallways are clean, things like that. Things that are real differentiators in parents' minds and eyes as they're walking around the hall. So again, not the in-depth scientific marketing strategy that we could dig into, but certainly those simple things make big differences.
Well, and I think understanding your audience too, like, and your competitors in your area, because, I mean, we're in an old factory. We still look like we're in an old factory, you know, so, and it's a middle school of boys. So clean hallways for us looks very different than it does here. But that's also understanding our audience as well and how we fit into kind of a larger ecosystem of Richmond, for instance. But I mean, I agree.
It's still a school, like today, it's still
yeah.
a school day.
Yeah.
You want to make sure everybody understands school is alive.
Yeah.
People are in the halls and it's not going to be perfect, but it needs to be a differentiator. That's a great point, Drew.
Yeah, so it's like the experience, what experience
Yes.
are people having, and your messaging and like who you are shines through in that experience. Like, Jay, walking through the halls today and being greeted by your amazing faculty and staff and students, just
Yeah.
A+ on customer experience. And like, I was like, this school must be warm and welcoming, because I sure feel warm and welcome. So
Big smile at the door.
Big smile.
Yeah,
Great.
so
to hear.
happy to see me.
Yeah.
I was like, in my celebrity, like, this is awesome.
yeah,
Can we do this every day?
yeah, great.
Yeah, and I would add that you often look for what you hope for in a school. And when we were walking up, the students were running the track outside on this beautiful day, and I was thinking, well, there you go. There's an avenue into learning right there. So yeah, I think showing what you're doing is really, really important.
Yeah. On that note, let's talk about social media. So I'm sure everybody here has a love-hate relationship with it. And if you're doing marketing and communications, you have to use it. So let's talk about what platforms you're most active on, where you see the most engagement. And also maybe you could even talk a little bit about how you use storytelling and maybe even like some tools that you use for your social media. I know you're doing a lot of that. You want to start out?
Yeah, so I don't have a love-hate relationship. I love Instagram. I do not like Facebook. No, just we are mostly on Instagram and Facebook. We dabble, I would say, in YouTube, and then but mostly for very specific purposes. We have teams that have additional social media that I do not run. That's another conversation. But so the reason why I love Instagram specifically is because we find that is a lot of where our parents are. We have certainly alumni, grandparents, parents on Facebook as well, but Instagram is a place where people show up to see their kid at the field trip or to see their student getting on stage for the first time, right? When they're trying out for a middle school play or whatever. We do a lot of the kinds of stuff that Instagram is going to promote. So we do a lot of stories, a lot of lives, and we hold intention that there's an ethical framework with that kind of holds under here. So what we want to be showing also needs to match our outcomes and goals and hopes. We also hold that intention with the very popular anxious generation and Jonathan Haidt, and reminding us that we shouldn't have media in kids' faces 24 hours a day. They shouldn't be a commodity. They shouldn't be a marketing tool even for us, that they're not the market, which is absolutely something that helps us frame and contextualize what we're doing. So with that lens, then coming to social media, we're asking questions like, what is the story to be telling? Do we need to show a kid's face and their name to tell the story well? Probably not, actually. Maybe we're showing them what we're doing rather than telling them in many, many cases. So storytelling for me is all encompassing. I am often, almost every day, asking teachers, why did you come to work today? What makes you so excited? What was a project that you're really proud of? Like those sorts of things. And then I get the content, which is organic, and not just my observation. So it's not one person's voice, but it's coming from a unified voice telling the stories of our teachers, which I think is important.
Do you have a formal process for that? Like, do you have like a reminder, like check in with this teacher today?
I do, yeah. So I have a regular pop-up on my calendar. Well, I have pop-ups for everything to remind me of things, but one of those is to check in and ask good questions. I also, as many of you probably do have from time to time, get busy and don't do these things. So I'll maybe like seek out 4 or 5 people in a day and then write some batch content and then save that for the time when it's most appropriate. Yeah.
Yeah, we're almost exclusively on Instagram, which then feeds Facebook. but we don't actually post anything on Facebook. And like you were saying, it is all about kind of the storytelling and showing the parents and the prospective families what we are doing on a day in and day out basis. From our surveys, we know the relationship that the students have with faculty are why a lot of the boys love being at the school and why parents want them to come. Because for middle school boys, understanding middle school boys, it's all about the relationships. So we spend a huge amount of time in our content calendar showing relationships, showing the boys and the faculty in relationship with each other, and in different contexts. And I think that that really helps tell the story. But we're also really intentional about doing that. And we will post every single day showing something about that aspect.
We are all over the gram here. We love it. It's great. One of my favorite things we've done, our athletic director actually is very savvy at social media as well. And this gave us a little heartburn at first, but team takeovers for a day have really gotten a lot of traffic, and we monitor that obviously. But that's been really fun, particularly if like our girls basketball team made a deep state playoff run. And so when they're going to the state semifinals, they're just, they're documenting that on Instagram for all their classmates and their parents and things like that. It was just a lot of fun to see our students own a lot of the social media throughout the year in different pockets. Obviously, they're well trained and vetted and things like that, but those seem to generate a lot of enthusiasm and goodwill.
So fun. I love hearing the different perspectives of what you all are focused on and what platforms you're on. I think that that's really interesting. We're going to switch gears a little bit and dive into a question that often comes up when I'm talking to schools about board involvements and also head of school involvement in marketing. So how do you work with your head of school? I know we have some heads here, or board on marketing priorities?
Well, I'll jump in again. When I arrived at Seven Hills, the board was much more of an operational board. They were in more of the day-to-day as opposed to being more strategic. And so they had ideas across the spectrum. But in my purview about admissions, about events, about where we're advertising, where we had to advertise, what we were going to advertise about, what is the messaging going to be? It was all of that. And I really saw a great benefit in the digital world. I also saw it was a lot cheaper to do than the print media. And so I showed them data on how people were engaging. When I say people, sorry, parents, prospective parents, how our current parents were engaging with these different platforms and how we could track it. And so I pushed back a lot on their desire to have us in certain publications just because other schools were in that publication. And I didn't see it as a cost benefit to us. And so now they are completely strategic they're much more functional board now than they were, I feel, than when I arrived. And I fortunately had the support of my head, who also saw the benefit of going in this direction. And fortunately, we're fully enrolled. So that helps with that. If we weren't, then I can imagine some pushback, but I don't hear it at all anymore. But there were some trials and tribulations when it came to telling some of our board members, no, we are not going to be in Richmond Magazine. We're not going to advertise there because we don't see spending $5,000 to $6,000 for a half-page ad. That wasn't a benefit to us because you're the only one looking for us in there. Other prospective parents really aren't. They're going to other avenues and they're looking at different platforms in order to find us. So that's it.
So I would just share that Dr. Paul Lehman is our head of school, and I am so grateful for his trust because while he may not understand or be necessarily paying attention to what I'm doing every time I'm putting out content, I can ask him, hey, can I grab you for 5 minutes? And we're going to do a live on that, that initiative that we're going to be starting next week or something like that. And he will always say yes. So I'm so grateful for that willingness and also just ability to have a relationship of trust. As far as our board goes, we have an advancement division of the board. And so we have monthly check-ins basically for all of advancement, not just communications and marketing, but it helps that some of those folks on our board have that background. So there's a lot of common language, which is helpful. And then also kind of their input. So I'll say often if we're introducing something new, like as we discussed at the advancement board meeting, right? So it just gives that extra, like, it's not just me on my own doing this work. It's me as a part of a team that feels a lot more collaborative than yeah.
Our advancement committee of the board, when we arrived here a couple of years ago, it was actually called Advancement and Marketing, and quickly strongly requested that we need to change that. They don't need to have a role in that other than be advocates and followers and fans and things like that. They were gracious and absolutely understood that. And fortunately, we've been able to, again, with some really talented people in those positions now, do really good things. They see, I think, through the board lens as much as anything, just the goodwill that comes from the consistent posting. But then again, as I referenced a few minutes ago, our annual day of giving was so successful, and so much of that was done via our social media channels. And so they understand conceptually why their role is to back out of the day-to-day marketing things, the suggestions of where we need to put print media and things like that. We're in a good position right now. Yeah.
Thanks. Got a little bit of time left, so I'm going to jump again, backwards this time on our list. But what surprised you most about this year's enrollment season for your marketing efforts? Anything surprising?
I think for me, it was validation of the current generation of parents and how they search for schools. You hear data out there and you hear statistics that, parents are looking 2, 3, 4 years before their child is eligible to look at a school. So for middle school, they're looking in kindergarten, they're looking at other times, and I don't necessarily know about them. In the process, they're out there, they're searching, but I don't necessarily know about them. But the number of parents who said, we've been following you for a while, we have been on your website, we are following you on Instagram, the numbers of those parents and who were already pretty clear of the direction that they wanted their child to go in. They're looking at multiple schools, but the homework that they had done just kind of crystallized in my mind the stereotypes of the younger generation and how they're gathering information. That was pretty eye-opening to me.
Yeah, I would just share that prior to being communication specialist at our school, I was doing admissions. And though my background is in communications, it really helped to have that lens of what do parents want to know? What are they asking? What are the common questions that are coming up? And again, categorizing those questions and then preemptively answering the questions through social media, through the kinds of articles that we write and things like that. It was profoundly helpful to me. And I am always trying to learn. So I often tell our teachers and our faculty and staff, if you see something that isn't quite right, either in vibe or in reality, please tell me that, because I don't want to be communicating information that's incorrect. Even if it's just your opinion, I want to know that. And so I think opening myself up to that has helped kind of keep me humble, but also it makes a better overall communications plan. And then what's surprising about it is how truthful and honest folks have been, and parents as well. And so when we have, if we unfortunately have people leave the school or we have people joining the school, they're often telling me and giving pretty active feedback, which is nice. One of the things that has surprised me about enrollment most is that with changes in our world and changes in, our climate, political climates, things like that, I did expect more movement within our school population. We've actually stayed pretty consistent. So that's a surprise to me.
Same on the re-enrollment. We're in the midst here in Tidewater, Virginia, Hampton Roads, Virginia, huge military outpost on the south side, which is a different market altogether. It's very heavy Navy country here, where in our region, it's more Army and Air Force. So there's always a little bit of we're always going to pay close attention to world events and certainly the political climate like we all do, but what do conflicts in different parts of the world, how can that directly affect this part of Virginia? It's a real challenge for us. However, our re-enrollment, while still challenging at times, has stayed consistent. I think we were braced for a little bit more work on the re-enrollment front, based on just politics, based on budgetary cutbacks at the federal worker level, things of that nature. And we haven't seen that yet, knock on wood, but we were braced for that. And then secondly, in a completely different direction, we did some overhauling of our website. Still a work in progress, but did an overhaul of our website and prominently featured all of our faculty members, just nicely done headshot, degrees, things like that. There were more comments and compliments from parents on that shift in our website than anything else. Not that it's easier to find the academics page or that the athletic piece is so much better. It's that, gosh, it's really cool to see all the upper school faculty members who we don't know yet because our child's in kindergarten. There was a lot of that kind of commentary.
Yeah, that's really popular website.
Oh,
We have
yes.
those headshots and bios or education. We do that all the time.
That's our number 3
I
page.
was gonna say,
Yeah,
it's our
that's-
number 2.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good. It's tuition on yours too. It's usually
It's
tuition.
four.
It's
It's four.
Admission, tuition, faculty, staff.
Yeah.
Ours is home admissions and then faculty and then tuition from
Yeah.
there.
So
Interesting.
interesting.
Thank you.
Well, Tara, should we transition to
Let's
some of
do it.
our
We're almost out of
hallmarks of
time.
our program?
Yeah.
So we're called the Mindful School Marketing Podcast. So we do talk about mindfulness. So, as you're thinking about your role in school, or in terms of school marketing or leadership, how would you define mindfulness? Or how do you see mindfulness kind of in the work that you do?
Yeah, I would bring it back to integrity. I have to I want to embody what I'm trying to communicate and I want it to be true. If it's not true, I don't want to share it. If it's something that we aspire to, even as a school, I will say that. We often, I am tempted to always put our best foot forward, and sometimes I might be overselling a bit. And I try to remember that this is not, the point is not to sell something that's not true. The point is just to tell people who you are, and as we heard this morning, to, once you figure that out, own it and shout it from the rooftops. Of course, we're always striving to be better. Of course, we're trying to live into our vision and mission statements in a way that's authentic. But I think integrity about our process and about content is really, really important to me. So the mindful piece of that, I suppose, is checking in and asking the question, is it true?
Did a great answer. I think that's always, you want to have the, that kind of integral part, to what we are putting out there that is true to us and it is keeping true to your institution. I would also say I'm constantly trying to learn kind of new things and see how other people are doing things and thinking that my way is not always the best way. And that's why I love coming to these things. And this is why I like listening to your podcast, because it's kind of always learning kind of new things in a new way of figuring out how to best do it at my institution. But then also being okay to be wrong. It's okay to make mistakes. I think we try to model that for our students. But sometimes I think we're scared to do that. I mean, we say we want to model it, but I don't know if we always do. And I am always very quick to say, that was a fail on my part. Let's learn from that.
This is soulful work. This is, there's a depth to independent schools in any facet that doesn't exist in our counterparts in other areas. I think we always want to be mindful of that. We want to remember that certainly in how we engage with our students, with our parents, with any constituent groups, but it's deep and that's probably why decisions take a long time to happen and it's so collaborative. But these are places that are very soulful. I've always just tried to remind myself of that at least. And then I think we're familiar with the phrase, the needs of society should determine the work of the school. And so we often talk about referring back to our mission when making bigger decisions from a school standpoint. It's also what is our community dictating us? What are our parents saying they need? Let's listen to them. What are they begging for? In our case, we're launching, we just actually announced it today, ironically, we're launching a pretty comprehensive academic enrichment program, a support program. And that's something that's been needed here. And our parents have been telling us that, not literally telling us that, they've been saying that we just need something else. And so that's something that that's hot off the presses here, but we've listened and heard them. It took a minute, but we heard them say this. And so we're proud of people to do that.
I love that soulful work. Thinking maybe we should come up with a Remindful marketing podcast, because these are all really good reminders. And I appreciate all your answers and your time. If anybody's listened to the podcast, you know, we always do rapid fire questions at the end, the same ones. We're not going to take the time to do all of them today, but I'm going to make a quick mention of our Goodreads list, because we ask everyone, if you could put one book on the high school curriculum, what would it be? We have a fabulous list of books. I'm not going to ask you that today. We're going to ask you, what's one marketing tip or strategy that's made a big difference for your school? You may have answered already.
Yeah, I mean, for us, jobs to be done, understanding why parents are looking at your school, and being able to articulate how you meet those needs has been transformative. Everything from our digital marketing to our website to our Instagram, and it's all aligned. We're trying to show them kind of why they chose us.
I mean, very practically, I think the use of lives. It does take a little bit of trust of both your students and your staff and faculty members, but that return is so great, and parents will watch it live and also get a good feeling as they're doing so. When our high school principal will stop talking to me and turn around and ask the student, "How was the game last night?" And it's like, okay, that's why we come, right? And so, you know, you're learning to roll with it and that sort of thing, but it's authentic and it's good and it feels good. And then we also see that return and people share them and they're like, catch a glimpse of Connor's backpack as he's walking across the middle school lawn, right? Like those sorts of things are heartwarming, and it reminds us that we're real people with real stories and a real context, and that's what folks want to see.
This is not social media nor marketing directly, but, and I need to be careful not to endorse a specific product, I guess, but a great investment is live stream capability.
Mm-hmm.
And so we see that certainly in athletics a lot, but if you can figure out a way to live stream graduation, any sort of parent programming, I'm not suggesting Zooms in lieu of in-person meetings, but the live stream thing, we have gone all in on that, and we hauled the equipment over from the athletic department to live stream things that we've done in our auditorium, and it is such goodwill. It's usually a big investment up front for a school, but it is well worth the return.
That's great. I love that. So I don't know where we are. I think we might have about 5 minutes.
That's right.
5 minutes? Okay, we did this. So we have time for maybe 1 or maybe 2 questions, depending on what they are. Does anybody have a question for this panel or for Aubrey or for me? Yes.
I do. If you have a school and community that is pretty close knit, do you ever do any in-person marketing events rather than print marketing or media marketing to get yourself into the community? And if so, what does that look like?
The question is, just for our recording, do you do any in-person events?
We don't, unless if it's a middle school fair, but that we actually don't.
So we have an emphasis on music and the arts at our school. And so we use the opportunity to comp tickets to those events. And then we put a lot of posters and things around town. And then of course we have admissions counselors who are ready to greet those folks when they're coming in the door. So we can have a quick conversation, not for the purpose to like necessarily solicit to them, but to be there to answer questions, to be a hospitable smiling face as they enter the door, that sort of thing. But we see it as a gift to the community as well as an opportunity to share who we are and who our students are. So that's one example. we're kind of on the cutting edge of that right now and asking questions like, where should we be showing up? The farmer's market, like those sorts of things. I would say we have some things we've tried in the past that I wouldn't necessarily recommend as like those are like the ticket. But I do think it's interesting to be asking continually, where are our families or families who would be interested in our school, as you were mentioning earlier, where do they shop? Where do they hang out? Where, is it the music festival? Yeah, and then where to put a booth and things like that. So it feels like we have a presence and not like an in your face, like, come see us, look at all these things.
We've had some success with doing some parents only events off campus, whether it's at a local winery or a cool little bistro. Those are usually inexpensive to do. And even if there's only 3 couples who show, it's still a good time. It's engaging off campus in a very human form. And that's been something I've done in a couple of different spots. And then secondly, small events on campus by design. We've had a lot of really good returns, particularly for lower school admissions, not the big open house of yesteryear, but 10 people. We're gonna cap this enrollment at 10 people to come on campus and do a Thursday morning 10 o'clock tour through things. It's just more intimate, it's more personalized. It's far from the all-call big open house kind of real estate piece.
I have a client also in Northern Virginia that they do a lot of lecture series. So they'll have a mental health counselor come in open to the community and do, a talk about social media for middle schoolers and that type of thing, and invite people in. So that's another way to do it, sort of, grassroots marketing.
We have a client that we work with that they're like very holistic, like green initiative school, and like they have a beautiful like forested campus, and so they do farm and forest explorers program for ages 2 through 5 as a funnel into their, so it's open to the community and to siblings who are younger from the community. They use that as a kind of funnel into, it's free into their programs.
Yeah, I guess I should say we haven't really talked about summer camp and that sort of thing, but we do have an elementary, middle school summer camp that is very low cost. It's very affordable. That's open to anyone in our community. And then we are trying for the first time formal middle school camps with our distinctives. So things like sewing and the arts, visual arts, it's theater, writing your own script, like that sort of thing. So that this is our first time doing that this summer. So we'll see how it goes. And with a very, very deep discount if you're not a non-enrolled student.
Well, I think we've wrapped up perfectly on time. I want to thank you all so much, Jay, Drew, and Abigail. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Darcy, for having us at the conference today. And thank you everyone for attending. This episode is brought to you by Enquiry Tracker. We believe that every inquiry is an opportunity, and with Enquiry Tracker, you can unlock the full potential of your school's enrollment journey.
Say goodbye to missed opportunities and hello to a streamlined admissions process that prioritizes efficiency and effectiveness. Discover the leading solution for school admissions and marketing. Visit inquirytracker.net to book a personalized demo today. That's inquiry with an E, tracker.net.
Thanks for joining us on the Mindful School Marketing Podcast.
We'd love it if you pop into iTunes and leave a review, 5-star preferred. Let us know how you like the show. It helps us improve what we're doing and helps others find us too.